Laporte is going to be the last out to qualify for this heat race, which is round 4, heat 6, almost at the end of the heat races now. And well, we're going to see Jamie Henderson is leading the way on the qualifiers here. Jamie Henderson there, and he's with the Giant Killer team. He is actually the SG Petch Sprint champion of 2018. So Jamie Henderson there is leading them out to qualify. They're on the first lap, which is purely like a warm-up lap, if you like, and then they'll be actually setting the times. So Richard Jute is on his qualifier now. So in fact, all of them except for Ozanne, Pineiro, and of course Laporte at the tail there. So there's Ozanne across the line, there's Pineiro across the line, and here comes the former champion Laporte.
Pineiro's jumped up to the top, being the first driver out, I suppose, but there he is.
And well, we'll see what happens with their times as they come in. That sort of outlap does give an indication. Now the time's coming through for real now.
Gone above.
Yeah, Henderson's been beaten by Jute though. Now that's interesting. 32.5 from Jute. Is that going to be good enough to keep the pole? It is so far against Harvey Baul. It is so far against Fergal Ludlow and Ryan Smith. It's still Richard Jute. Meulemeester into second. Richard Jute's looking good. George Lovell into second. Richard Jute is looking very, very good. Dark horse was saying, and it could well be Jute. But what's going to happen? Pineiro into sixth place.
Wow.
Now, what about the former world champion, Gregory Laporte? This is the last chance for him to own. Laporte only into eighth. So Richard Jute, amazingly one of the first out to qualify, is actually going to be on the pole position here. And Richard Jute, well, as I said, he's a Marmite driver with this track because he excels on the snail section format, which is the one we're using, it's the regular format here at Formula Fast, but tends to struggle a bit on the revised format. So we never really see him into the semi-final and into the final because all the damage is done in the alternate layout.
I think we've been guaranteed by this qualifying result that we're going to have action all the way up and down the field. So you've got to think at least Laporte and Pineiro are going to be pushing from the back. So yeah, this is going to be fun.
Absolutely, for a variety of reasons, Pineiro and Laporte will not want to stay there. If they want to make it through the semi-final, they cannot be positioning themselves there at the end. They've got to be way up the top of the order. However, if they're not going to make the semi-final, they'll still want to end on a high, which involves getting up the order. So I think we can see action down there from 6th place Pineiro, 8th place Laporte, but definitely Ryan Smith is in a similar situation. Henderson to Meulemeester, he's 3rd, but he could do better. And George Lovell could probably do with the win here, should he have any chance of getting through to the semi-final. But Richard Jute will want to win. He'll want to take a win in this event. Okay, so Jute leads him round, and Jute is going to take the start. It's a good, clean start here, and away they go for this heat race number 6, the last heat race for all of these guys. It's looking pretty clean, Spanners. Jute's got the measure of Lovell, but Lovell, I think, is going to end up pulling away from Meulemeester, do you reckon?
No one went for that early move at the end of the snail section there, and it looked like Smith and Meulemeester were both very much set up. They weren't even looking, they were set up to follow each other through and clean as well. But number 15 is making a move. Ozanne down the back, but I don't think he's made that stick. It looked like he might have the inside line for a second, but I think that is how everyone started.
Yeah, pretty much. And Ozanne, who you were talking about, is sandwiched between Pineiro and Laporte, who we identified as drivers who might be looking to get to the front. So Pineiro there is still in 6th place. Obviously, you know, 6th place is as okay as it's going to be at the moment as far as he's concerned. He won't want the leaders to get away. It may well be that Laporte and Pineiro are the most likely ones to make the early pit stops.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah, get themselves out of the way. But I don't know, they've got no one behind them. So, yeah, so normally you're used to the front runners getting in trouble if they pit early, but there's no one to hold them up now.
By and large, it depends how highly Pineiro and Laporte really rate Jamie Henderson and Paul Ozanne, isn't it? So if they start thinking, well, yeah, this guy's doing all right, he's probably going to actually help me here, then they'll stay with him. If not, they'll be diving straight into the pits and strategizing themselves around what they see now as a problem. But it is Richard Jute, the South African driver, has the lead here, 2 laps in, and Jute definitely has a good lead here. He's racing ahead of George Lovell, who needs to make up some points. We're looking at Ryan Smith on screen as Jute completes another lap in the lead. The South African veteran driver is doing marvellously there in 1st place. He's heading George Lovell, and George Lovell really is looking for a decent point score from this one. He had an awful time in the previous heat, got bundled right down the order. Very disappointed and pretty angry about that. There was an awful lot of finger waving after that one.
He nearly knocked me down the stairs on his way out, on the way home yesterday.
Well, that's saying something, isn't it? So anyway, Richard Jute completes another lap in the lead. The South African driver with the lead there, Richard Jute. He's just checking a little bit behind, and he's got, you know, as much breathing space over George Lovell as you could expect. It's 0.6 of a second, almost 0.7 now, as Jute leads him around. There's George Lovell there with the green side to the helmet.
Harvey Baul also being very aggressive on the back of Ludlow, who's fallen away from Laporte. So there's those two very much at the back at the moment, but Baul is all over the back of Ludlow, and there could be a move coming. He's definitely got the pace.
Absolutely right there, Spanners. Ludlow and Baul are fighting a tail-end battle there, and Baul is looking ever more, decent at this. He's getting better all the time at this level, and Harvey's really showing well. But he's got Fergal Ludlow there to take on. Up at the front, though, it's still Richard Jute, but he's pulled up another 10th, 0.7 of a second over Lovell. Jute's obviously trying to check out in this one, Spanners.
Yeah, and I think, talking about who might make an early pit stop, I think Pineiro is sixth place.
Yeah, they're sort of reasonably even space. They're no sail, but reasonably even space. Pineiro stays out, but what about Laporte? No, Laporte does not bit away from Ozanne. Laporte does seem to be sort of backed up by Ozanne there.
Yeah, I think the three that are candidates to go are Pineiro, Laporte and Baul. They're the people who might benefit now from pitting out of being held up. Yeah,
Harvey Baul, very much the rookie in this situation. And, well, it'll be interesting to see if he's picked up enough strategy from everyone over the weekend that he actually figures out pitting for himself.
Ludlow's wrecking his race, to be fair, as far as he goes at the moment.
In fact, yeah, now we look closely at it, he's probably the one most impressive. But no, he's taken him for position. Harvey Baul is through, so now he'll need to stay out and try and put some time on not only Ludlow behind him, but also make some inroads on, would you believe it, former world champion Greg Laporte in front of him.
Laporte is losing ground. So he's now to pit at some point.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That you'd have to expect Laporte. But what about Pineiro? He's getting backed up a bit by Jamie Henderson. Now, what's Laporte going to do? No, Laporte does stay out. What's away from Laporte there, or was he just turning the wheel? It's our angle here I was looking at. It just seems though he'd raised a hand. There would be a possibility of someone below us signalling to him there. We're looking at George Lovell there on screen. There's Laporte, Greg Laporte, world champion back in 2008, as the leaders go through. There's back with Greg Laporte, and he's following Paul Ozanne there. Paul Ozanne, very much a veteran kart racer. Remember from 30 years ago, Paul Ozanne being one of the top boys. That's, of course, when I was racing. Karting is my main sort of motorsport at the time. And Greg Laporte is following Ozanne around. It's a bit of a surprise that Laporte maybe hasn't pitted, Spanners.
Now that's interesting. Baul, having made that move on track, has decided to pit. I, as my virtual kart manager, I think I would have urged him to use the clear track ahead of him, but I think there's an overtake. I think Laporte has managed to get past.
Yes, he has. Greg Laporte, the former world champion, has passed Paul Ozanne. Paul Ozanne's trying to come back in. Another... And, a bump from Ozanne. Ozanne certified hit on the back of Laporte. Nothing going, but Laporte's head bounced well back on screen. And up or down the inside is Paul Ozanne. And will Greg Laporte be waving? No. He's looking at race control to see what happens there. Race controller looking at Ozanne.
I think that was a fair move. I think he had the run on him.
Fair move, yeah.
I think it was fair.
Okay, and Laporte is he's dropped back a little bit from Paul Ozanne. Paul Ozanne quite robust there. He's made it work.
Bad move flag. I'm surprised at that. I'm surprised that Ozanne's got a bad move flag and he's given the place back to Laporte.
That's right, and as it's happened now as well down the back straight,
so
Laporte has retaken the place.
And Pineiro is into the pits now. We suspected that might be the case. He was in 6th place being held up, and he's going to come out just behind Laporte and Ozanne.
Absolutely, and given what's just been going on, do we expect Laporte? I think we expect Laporte to stay out longer now because he's in front of Ozanne. But yeah, Ramon Pineiro was your prediction, Spanners, for an early stopper, and Pineiro has done that. And what's that going to mean for the race? It was Jamie Henderson he was following.
So he's looking to skip up to 4th place if he was going to benefit out the pits. So hopefully from his point of view, he's got now the pace that when Smith and Henderson come in, he leapfrogs them.
Absolutely. Now it's going to be very interesting as well because Pineiro may also believe, although Meulemeester is further up the order, he may believe he's got pace on Meulemeester as well, which would elevate him potentially to 3rd behind Lovell and Jute. Now if it works out right for Pineiro, he would then be in contact with the leaders and actually challenge for the win there. So Pineiro's thinking here is probably to set some absolute blinding lap times now.
Smith is in.
Oh, he is. Ryan Smith has pitted. Now this could be good or bad news for Pineiro. We'll see what happens.
battle. That's
Smith comes out behind Ozanne. Now that's helpful for Pineiro. A bit of contact there, but that's helpful for Pineiro. We've seen Ozanne getting very feisty. He's not going to let Smith through. It's going to be for position, so he doesn't have to move out of the way. And Greg Laporte, the former world champion, is in front of them. So Smith could well be joining that battle there, and it may well be what Pineiro needs to close in.
So what's Henderson going to do? Does Henderson now respond to try and get back into that pack?
It's all a question of lap times, really. I think Spanners, Henderson, if we look on the scoreboard for the lap times, well, Henderson he's competitive on lap times. He's competitive with anybody, including Pineiro. So you know, he's there or thereabouts on the lap times. Fastest lap so far of this race is Richard Jute, the South African, who's leading the way from George Lovell. Jute is actually coming up to Harvey Baul by the looks of things. He's not far behind the youngster, and Richard Jute, he's either going to pass Baul or even jump in the pits.
Meulemeester has decided now is the time to make his move. I don't think he's going to get out in front of Pineiro. Well, he is, but Pineiro's got great momentum. Pineiro's going to have to go all the way around the outside as Laporte comes into pit as well.
Absolutely, Greg Laporte has come in the pits, and that's interesting because he got ahead of Paul Ozanne, and the pits have some clear space, and now he's pitted out of it. So, well, we'll see how that happens. He's obviously seen he's now got the clearest space possible. There goes George Lovell somewhere behind Richard Jute, but this is Lovell's chance to close in if he's going to do it. And Richard Jute moves ahead of Harvey Baul, so Harvey Baul goes a lap down to race leader Richard Jute. Harvey Baul, of course, has made a pit stop, I believe. Is that right, Spanners?
Yes, he did. He made an early stop, yeah, which was the surprising stop. But into the pits right now, we have number 11, which is Ludlow.
Fergal Ludlow. Now, if I remember rightly, wasn't Fergal Ludlow? He wasn't he? So this could be quite interesting.
But Baul's well clear. He had the pace, which is why I was surprised the Baul pitted at that point.
George Lovell in the pits. Sorry, Spanners. George Lovell in the pits there. The first stop is good. The second one, he's trying to force the issue there. We'll see on the timing what sort of stop that was.
Look on track though. He's got the inside line, and he's squeezed Meulemeester into the wall, and Smith has come down the inside. So Meulemeister's lost hand over fist there. That was a very robust move onto the outside.
And it was crucial there for George Lovell to come out in front of that battle there. I think his race would have been absolutely finished if he'd been in the middle of it. So George Lovell, he's got the pace. He now needs to try and pull away from Ryan Smith, which is no mean task. So it's going to be Lovell ahead of Smith and Meulemeester and Ozanne and Pineiro in a mighty 5-kart battle, and that means that is half the field here. That's half the race right behind George Lovell, and George Lovell needs to pull away here. Now George Lovell needs to make inroads to Richard Jute, because when Jute comes in to the pits, that will be Lovell's chance to try and pass him. Failing that, it could be a second place if he can stay there for George Lovell, which is what he needs. Very defensive down the backstretch there. Lovell defending against everybody, headed by Ryan Smith behind him. So there's Lovell in the green-sided helmet, Ryan Smith in the red overalls. George Lovell, one of the South Coast karting boys. Ray Lovell down there will be watching on screen, I'm sure, assuming he hasn't already thrown a brick through his television, watching George Lovell's earlier race. Pineiro makes a move on Ozanne, and it works. It worked, but they're sideways. Collision.
Now then, Pineiro's a little bit upset about that.
Yeah, he's Spanish. He's going to be waving, isn't he? So we'll see whether any sort of dim view is taken. But that's kind of opened this out a little bit. We've got Lovell and then Smith and then Meulemeester, then a gap. It's no longer a 5-kart battle.
So I'm watching the marshals to see if they're picking up the red flag for Pineiro on that move past Ozanne. But the main thing is they've lost touch now with that leading group.
Ozanne very much rolling by the green there. He's not able to really make any inroads. He's been put a lap down by Richard Jute, who we know is not stopped. But it's battle royal behind. There's George Lovell. Now, Henderson is in second. Jute is in first. They've not stopped. But Lovell, Smith and Meulemeester have. And there they are, fighting it out now. As George Lovell is in front of Ryan Smith. He can't quite pull away. He'd like to. But he's trying to make a gap where he doesn't have to do any fighting. George Lovell, I'm sure, would like to be able to sit there piling in some laps. And So George Lovell is really trying to break away from Ryan Smith if he can. However, it's Ryan Smith. Well, Meulemeester signalling to Smith, go, go, go. So Meulemeester suggesting that he's not going to fight Smith. In other words, don't bother defending, mate. Just get after Lovell. Don't let him pull away.
Well, it depends how Meulemeister's feeling about that earlier contact with Lovell. Maybe he's saying to Smith, look, I don't want to lose track of Lovell because I want to make sure that I get that place back. There's been a kind of agreement that when the guy's coming out the pit, you stay to the right-hand side. Lovell was quite robust in showing Meulemeester the outside of that corner, shall we say. There certainly wasn't a cart's width all the way around.
Introduced him to the barrier. Yeah, there's George Lovell, and so George Lovell continues to lead his battle. He's not able to actually pull away from Smith. They're running down the inside, and Meulemeester. That was quite a pass. Ryan Smith is protesting to race control, but the big gain here has been made by George Lovell. George Lovell has managed to eke out a gap. Even if there's a pass flag given, it doesn't matter. George Lovell will have got what he wanted out of that. Now, Meulemeester was responding to something, so I wonder if he's been given the flag that he's responding. He's looking back towards Ryan Smith.
No, I can see the flag. It is unwaved at the moment.
It's unwaved,
How
okay.
How do you feel about that move, though? Because he was alongside when Smith turned.
Well, yeah, it's a bit of a funny one because, you know, robust is robust, but he's got to do something, hasn't he? I mean, you've got to draw the line somewhere. It's there's aggressive and there's stupid, isn't there? We don't see anything stupid at this level, and how mean is mean. Of course, if you're on the receiving end of it, you're going to think it's out of order, aren't you?
If he'd have come from a long way back and just not braked and used Smith as the brake, then yes, you might think it was a bit over the line. But in that case, into the braking zone, they were side by side, but they were aiming for the same point, which is next to the apex. And that's where the collision came.
Yeah, absolutely, Span. Well, that's exactly as it was, isn't it? And it's been deemed to have been fair. George Lovell, though, continues. He will be. He may not have seen the incident, but he certainly see the gap that's developed and assumed something has happened. Ramon Pineiro, though, is coming into picture, following Meulemeester and Smith, and he now can see them, and he now knows what he's aiming at. So that may pull him along. So there's the back of Smith. So there's Meulemeester and Smith going down the backstretch. Lovell in view.
We'll put it this way, I don't think Meulemeester is going to feel bad about making contact if he comes up against Lovell. So if this is a move and there's a bit of plastic on plastic, I don't think he's going to lose any sleep over that.
Absolutely. If he doesn't make the move, he's not going into the semi-finals. So no matter what happens, his day is done. So, I mean, you know, what are they going to do to Meulemeester? Send him home? Exactly. This is his last heat race anyway, you know. So, you know, it is a little bit of that situation. Meulemeester, it has to be said, though, has been scoring very well. We're looking at Ramon Pineiro, the Barcelona driver, into the pits then. The 16 is Jamie Henderson from second.
Now, we did wonder about his race, so he's going to come out right in that Meulemeester-Smith battle. In fact, he's going to come out ahead of it, and he's come out ahead of Lovell as well.
Absolutely. And
well, that side by side.
Oh, yes, and he's actually taken it. He's ahead of Lovell. Well, that's very interesting, isn't it? So I honestly didn't expect that to happen.
Well, we forgot about Henderson, didn't we?
We did.
In the meantime, Meulemeester, Lovell, they've all been tripping over each other as well as Smith, and that's let Henderson through.
And when you look at the lap times, Henderson's been very fast. And down the inside, it's Lovell. Lovell sends it down the inside. Oh, enough signal there from Henderson. Gave him a, suggested he'd gone up to first, but actually it's for second, so he is wrong. But he was trying to tell George Lovell that George would actually move up to first there, but in fact it's second. So Henderson not too keen on that passing move. It is still Richard Jute with the lead. Now Richard Jute has built up enough of a gap that he can pit and come out in the lead. So this looks like Richard Jute's race. There's George Lovell up to second place. And there's Meulemeester and Smith and Pineiro. So this really is tightening up again to be a 5-car scrap. There's George Lovell with the green side, that side of his helmet at least. And it is Jamie Henderson right behind him. Jamie Henderson not pleased about that earlier pass.
It's a tight, twisty circuit. I don't think we've seen a pass without.
To be honest with you, the move there by George Lovell, I know when he's watching this back, Jamie's not going to like hearing this, but it was a bit fairer than a lot of what we've seen, and it's a bit fairer than a lot of what we've seen being done to George Lovell. So, you know, it's, I mean, George is going to be probably taking no prisoners now, and that was about as decent as you could hope for. So, there's Ryan Smith and Marc Meulemeester that we're looking at.
Oh, Smith has got ahead of Meulemeester.
Yeah, it's sort of turned back around there. But Smith, let's have a look. It's still Richard Jute listed as being the fastest lap. and Richard Jute has just absolutely checked out this race. He's crossing the line again. In fact, he's not got too much further. He's entering the Snell section while the 5-car battle for second place is leaving the Snell section. So Richard Jute, he has not stopped though, and that's made the difference. He has a 20-second lead over George Lovell, and we're assuming a very good pit stop's going to be 10 seconds. A decent pit stop's going to be 11, and a passable one 12 seconds. Richard Jute has got 20 seconds to play with, so it's a no-brainer. He's got this race in the bag.
Smith is starting to lose track at the back of Henderson at the moment, which must be frustrating to Meulemeester and Pineiro. And 21, he's in. He might make it.
It's the leader, it's Richard Jute, and he comes out with a healthy lead. Absolutely no one even on the same page. There's Richard Jute. He's been in, he's come out, he still has a massive lead. As for pit stops, it wasn't a bad one. He's fairly conservative, just over 11 seconds, but he could afford that. He built up a 20-second gap over those behind him, and that allowed him some comfort in the pit stop. He could have taken 18 or 19 seconds if he wanted to. As it happens, it was just over 11 seconds. Richard Jute, a superlative performance by the South African driver. He knows his way around this track, and this is the layout that he excels on. It's a very surprising thing with Richard Jute. He never does very well on the revised layout, but on this one involving the Snail section, which is the regular Formula Fast circuit layout, Richard Jute is one of the best.
Interesting now to see if Henderson fancies lining up a revenge move on Lovell.
Yeah, I mean, it may well happen because they've only got 1 minute 40 seconds remaining, so only a couple of laps to go really. So if Henderson's going to do it, it's going to be soon. And of course Henderson, another one who may well be going home anyway, so maybe take the chance. There's Harvey Baul. This of course is going to be his final race, his final laps. There's the leader, Richard Jute, the South African, turning into the Snell section there. Superlative performance. And there's George Lovell leading Henderson. Now, is Henderson going to go for a last lapper? It's there's Lovell, there's Henderson. Henderson's right on his tail. There's a gap to Smith. And Lovell works his way around with Jamie Henderson. He's not in contact with the second place driver, but it's looking good. Barely a minute to go. So heading off down the backstretch, there's George Lovell. Henderson's not close enough to do anything. They're really backing it into the corner. There's Ryan Smith, Meulemeester, and Ramon Pineiro, the Barcelona driver, the Spanish. And they're going to be ending the race fairly soon. It's 50 seconds to go. Surely the flag will be coming very soon for Richard Jute. There's Greg Laporte, a lonely race down there in 7th place. Ryan Smith we're looking at now. So that's the big battle there. Richard Jute comes round. Are they going to give him the flag this lap? Here comes Richard Jute. He's going to take the flag, the South African. Richard Jute takes the win. What a win there by Richard Jute. A massive 9.5 seconds win. Here comes Harvey Baul to conclude his championship. And here comes George Lovell in second place. A great result. Henderson, Smith, Meulemeester, and Ramon Pineiro in 6th. And a back marker there, that's Ludlow. And here comes Greg Laporte in 7th, the 2008 world champion. And 7th place was the best Laporte could do. He'd switched karts earlier on, if you remember. And it's not really worked out for him in this race, but what a win there by Richard Jute, the South African driver, right up. One of the clearest victories we've seen all weekend. An amazing performance by Jute. If he could match his alternate layout results with his what he's capable of in the Snell section, nice then you know, he would be a major contender for the overall honours. But well, we'll see what he can do. We'll see if he's still in it. He may not have enough points to make the semi-final. There, of course, is George Lovell we're looking at. George Lovell feeling much better there, 2nd place after some real shenanigans in the first race. There's Ryan Smith, the Scotsman, getting out in the red suit. And it looks like Jamie Henderson, that's him there in the white helmet and black suit. So we're going down to Spanners and see what he has for us.
I'm here with race winner Richard Jute. You prefer that layout, huh?
Yeah, big time. I struggle on the alternative. Yeah, my best result of the weekend. I've had actually quite a crap weekend, so yeah.
But, so it's the 4th race. Obviously, you're not going to make the semi-finals, but what a wonderful way to end it. Such a dominant win.
Yeah, I was happy. At least that's made my weekend, so good idea.
Congratulations, you get a gold star. Well done on that win. Fantastic to have yet another new winner this weekend. Back up to you, James.
And what a wonderful win there by Richard Jute. On this snail layout, he is one of the best. He really is, Richard Jute. And that showed up in that against amazing competition there. You know, when you're having the former world champion such as Greg Laporte bundled down the order to 7th place, then you win that race by 10 seconds. That's a really good show. So wonderful job there, Richard Jute. George Lovell will be had his sort of heart lifted a bit by 2nd place, and then, you know, further down the order,